been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Tonight on The Late Show Live, thank you, President Trump. The hostages released imminently. The war is over. Hello, good evening to you. Tonight on The Late Show Live.
The war is over. The war is over, okay? You understand that?
You heard him, the war is over. Breaking news tonight, US President Donald Trump is on his way to the Middle East as he restores peace in the region. That's as Sir Keir Starmer lands in Egypt. There he is coming off his plane now. He pledges Britain will rebuild Gaza and hope returns to Israel. Israelis gather to celebrate the release of those hostages who are expected to be set free at any moment tonight. Also,
we have played a key role behind the scenes in shaping this. It's right that we do so.
Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson is caught out after claiming the UK was a key player in the Gaza peace deal. Yeah, right. We'll also be diving headfirst into the stories from tomorrow's newspapers, hours before they even hit the shelves, including this one.
Then I see flags painted on roundabouts, and that is just a bit weird.
Dear, oh dear, here we go again. Labour MP Jeevan Santa calls on the UK to take down our own British flags from the streets. Has our country been hijacked? And of course, we're live in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to Britain too, including this.
You know what? I am not President of the United States. You want to go to the White House and talk to him?
I'm not sure if she's been on the source again, but former US President Kamala Harris is taunted while promoting her new book. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live, and your night's just getting started. Welcome along to this historic night. It's a momentous occasion in the Middle East and indeed the entire world, because moments ago, US President Donald Trump told reporters on board Air Force One that the war is over as he travels to the Middle East.
The war is over. The war is over, okay? You understand that? I think people are tired of it. It's been centuries, okay? Not just recent, it's been centuries. I think people are tired of it, yeah.
Any moment now, Hamas is expected to release the remaining hostages who have been held in the Gaza Strip for more than 2 torturous years. Well, let's go live now to the anchor and host of Batia on News Nation, Batia and Gar Sargon. Batia, thank you for your company this evening on, as I said, what is a momentous occasion. Give us your thoughts on what could happen in the coming hours and what it means for not just the Middle East, but for the world as well.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I think the feeling in the United States is certainly one of jubilation. I think in Israel, of course, Israelis are feeling just so grateful to President Trump and very, very excited about what seems like it's going to happen very, very soon. But of course, there's also a bit of tragedy in Israel. Not everybody is getting a hostage family member back alive. The families who lost either soldiers or other hostages who were killed in Gaza earlier were coming up on the 2-year anniversary in the Hebrew calendar. So, of course, a lot of that excitement is tinged with the tragedy that remains from October 7th.
Yeah, and Batia, this is a historic occasion, but it's I'd say the beginning of the end. We still have to work out, well, luckily it's not me working it out, but President Trump and the US have to work out, and Israel, how Hamas will be de-armed, and indeed what the future of Gaza looks like, right?
Yeah, the thing that you have to understand is that Donald Trump has uniquely been able to create a really deep sense of trust and credibility amongst all of the stakeholders here. So he is a person who is deeply, deeply pro-Israel and very proud of that. He brags often about being the most pro-Israel president in American history. But at the same time, he was able to convince the Muslim stakeholders, I'm not talking about Hamas, who are basically irrelevant, okay? They're a proxy of larger forces, but I'm talking about Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, and Turkey, which joined late in the day but was a crucial piece of this. Having all of these stakeholders say, you know what, we trust President Trump, that he has our best interests at heart. This was crucial to making this ceasefire happen. And the legwork that went into building that credibility, it took this whole year. I mean, it started with the president's trip to the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia early in his second term, where he went there and brought back trillions of dollars of investment into the United States economy. And I think this is the key to how he succeeded. It's truly brilliant and truly vintage Trump, where people like President Obama and President Bush had this fantasy of shared values with these Muslim states, that we could export our democracy to them. President Trump has no illusions. He doesn't believe in shared values. He believes in sharing value. He believes in shared interests. And that is what he did. He turns this from an ideological battle into one of commerce and a shared future in which everybody prospers.
Yeah, well said, Batia. I also have to ask as well, the reaction from the left, from the Democrats, those with maybe what's called Trump derangement syndrome, TDS. I mean, President Trump is often given a lot of stick and criticism for not ending the war in Ukraine as quickly as he'd hoped. By his own admission, it's proving a lot trickier than he first thought. But do you think President Trump's going to get the credit he deserves finally for this?
I was one of the people who was pretty damn angry when he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. Of course, the woman who won it deserves it very much and dedicated it to him. But I can't see them overcoming their TDS in order to give him the credit he deserves. It would mean rethinking all of their assumptions, which is, of course, what Donald Trump did, which is how we got there. He threw every single piece of, quote unquote, expertise in the trash and said, we're starting over. I can make this happen. And it truly is a miracle. I mean, this is really important for your audience to understand. I did not believe that those hostages would ever come out alive. This is a miracle that we're seeing with our own two eyes. And he's reshaping the globe around this America First agenda that actually raises all ships.
Can I ask you please about the UK's part in all this? Because I'm not sure if you've seen, maybe not, but this morning the Education Secretary in the UK gave an interview where she said that the UK has played a key role in this success behind the scenes, and she's been absolutely slammed from all quarters. The US ambassador to Israel called her deluded on X and so on. To your knowledge, what is the UK's involvement, and are the likes of our Labour government just trying to win some stolen valour here? I mean, Keir Starmer's rocking up Egypt now. I think he's landed, and many people back home in the UK are thinking, well, hang on a minute, what have you done? I mean, all you did was recognise Palestine as a state, which Marco Rubio said was very, very unhelpful.
Yeah, I think the only role they played is perhaps to provide a contrast between somebody who's actually bringing peace and then the virtue signaling to the base that actually prolongs the suffering of the Palestinians, which is, of course, the role that the left has played since October 7th.
And just finally, before I let you go, Batia, somebody on gbnews.com/you'll say, it's our comments section, has said, I think saying the war is over comes a bit too soon because Hamas could do something terrible tomorrow. I don't trust them. I mean, what's the likelihood of that? And if they did decide to do something unthinkable, what would the consequences be?
All of Hamas's allies in the region have said, this is it. It's over. None of them want to risk angering Donald Trump. And I think that's very wise of them. So, of course, Hamas has not behaved rationally. They are a mass murdering, mass raping, baby murdering, they're not a rational actor, but they're out of money, they're bankrupt, they have no more weapons. The leadership is decimated. The majority of Hamas right now are teenage fighters. So it's very hard for me to believe that they would take on their paymasters in that way. But of course, we have to all keep praying until we see every one of those hostages come out alive.
Okay, that comment was from Beverly Pierce, who's a member. So, Beverly, hopefully Batia has eased your mind a little bit on that front. Batia, great to talk with you. Thank you. And hopefully we'll catch up soon. That's Batia Ungar Sargon, the host of Batia on News Nation. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now here in DC. The foreign correspondent, superstar journalist Sarah Firth, and the Daily Mail's US political reporter, scoop getter Victoria Churchill. Good evening, ladies. Hello. Thank you for your company. Sarah, we'll start with you. Your thoughts. It could be it will be a momentous, historic night tonight when the hostages are released at some point.
Yes, that countdown clock is now on. So they've got the deadline that's been set by Israel of 10 British Standard Time, 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. We know that President Trump is on his way to Israel now. He will, according to the White House, be expected to meet with some of the families of the hostages, maybe some of the hostages themselves. Wow. He's going to be addressing Israeli Parliament, and then of course he's on to Egypt for that summit with UK Prime Minister already in Egypt, but all the regional leaders as well who are gathered there to sign this peace deal. So potentially an historic day, but speaking to everyone across the region right now, there is of course a lot of caution with that optimism. Until it happens, I think everyone on tenterhooks waiting for this historic moment.
Just to clarify there, you said President Trump will possibly meet some of the hostages?
Possibly.
Well, that'll do wonders for his sort of approval ratings back here.
I mean, he's been very, very proactive in having hostage members' families here in the US, in hosting them. He's spoken to the hostages themselves that have already been released up until now. And he really makes a point every time he speaks about this situation of referencing what they've told him. It's very clear, actually, from President Trump's in the lead up to coming together with this incredible deal that he's managed to pull off. That he has been deeply affected by what he heard from those hostages about what they'd gone through. So it was very personal for him in many ways. And yeah, I mean, he's managed to do something that so many before him haven't. And I think, yes, the region just now anxiously awaits this major moment, historic moment. Yes, Victoria, he's managed to do something that those who came before him haven't. Many of his critics thought would never happen because they just think, orange man bad, it's President Trump. How's the left going to be reacting tonight, all those with Trump derangement syndrome? Do you think they'll be cured?
Well, I don't think they'll be quite cured. I think I saw a meme from Andy from Toy Story, the I don't want to play with you anymore. And it was like labeled leftist protesters and, Israel-Hamas war. Of course, they still have Ukraine to cry over, which I'm sure will be their new focus. And I'm sure all of us have seen on social media people that chose to put both the Ukrainian and the Palestinian flag in their bios as shows of solidarity. So, I think they will have a bone to pick. Saw some other interesting memes like, Palestinian protesters demanding free Palestine. Trump says, here you go. And they're like, oh, this is bad because it's just Trump's doing it. I think there's also, of course, some credit to be given actually to the left for giving him the credit that I think many think he deserves. We've had everybody from the likes of, U.S. senators on the left. Hillary Clinton, the last 24 hours. Even Hillary Clinton coming out, of course, she is not Trump's favorite person and he is neither hers. But, she is giving him the credit. And of course, other than the fact that she ran against him, she actually does have that background of being an international diplomacy from Secretary of State. I think, a lot of people would say not very successful Secretary of State, but she is at least somebody that has been in a lot of these rooms with international leaders in the past. So I think she understands kind of that element of it. Yeah. And also interesting to note, I think, is the role of Steve Witkoff. He's been the special envoy in the UAE, in the Middle East, in Israel. He's been the one kind of shepherding these deals behind the scenes. Marco Rubio, Of course, he's got 7 different jobs in the administration, as I think even he jokes at times. But I think overall it's obviously a welcome sight, and actually Ivanka and Jared Kushner, who have taken back seats in the administration this time around, they were in Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, basically sharing words directly from the president. Ivanka said, some sentiments to the hostage families. So I hope he does get a chance to.
And these pictures on your screen now that were just on there now, that was the hostage. We're going to get it back up. The hostage families speaking to President Trump on the phone. They were saying, "Thank you, President Trump, so much. We really appreciate you." And he was saying, "We're with you all the way. We're going to get your family members out. We're there with you." It's a great clip, actually. We'll try and get it for you for later on in the show. And just finally, Sarah, the UN, the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, says there's been, quote, real progress in aid operations across Gaza since the ceasefire took effect on Friday. A spokesman said that for the first time since March, cooking gas entered the strip. There's more tents for families, frozen meat, fresh fruit, flour, medicines also crossed throughout the day. So it seems the humanitarian situation is also improving on the Gaza side as well, which is news.
Yes, we've seen the aid starting to finally enter, and much needed. I think the statistic is something like 90% of homes in Gaza have now been destroyed. So as you've seen the sort of scenes of jubilation on both sides, and you're right, that's remarkable footage of the hostage family speaking to President Trump. On both sides of this, there's no question that he is the man on everyone's lips right now, just credited with bringing about this moment. And it's so rare, we've spoken about this before, to see both sides celebrating at the same time. Both in Israel, the families waiting for their loved ones, and in Gaza, the Palestinians who've been desperate for this bombardment to end. But that aid will be desperately needed. And Ben, what's really critical now is what we're going to see tomorrow. It's hopefully all those hostages released. But when you have President Trump going then on to Egypt and signing this peace deal, the questions that still remain, who will govern in Gaza? What will be done with reconstruction? And of course, a huge security issue of whether or not Hamas will disarm. So this is the first step. Israeli Prime Minister said tomorrow will be the beginning of a new path, but he has warned about those major challenges that lie ahead.
Yeah, and what I'd love to do? It will never happen, but I'd love to go into Gaza and do some Vox Pops and ask the Palestinians what they think of President Trump. It would be a fascinating insight. Maybe we can organise it if anyone's watching from the channel back home. Book us a flight. Give us a bulletproof vest. I'll be there. Any hour now, viewers, listeners back home in Blighty, any hour the hostages could be released. It's a historic night. It could happen here on the Late Show Live. I'm just going to read you some very quick comments. gbnews.com/yoursay. Sheila, this was a great comment. Thank you for this. You've said, President Trump survived an assassination to bring the hostages home and bring peace. God works in mysterious ways, or the universe, whatever you choose to believe. You cannot deny he did the impossible. He became president again. Oh, I've got goosebumps. He became president again against severe adversity, and he saved a lot of lives in doing so. Thank you for that, Sheila. Really appreciate it. Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live.
We have played a key role behind the scenes in shaping this. It's right that we do so.
Oh, I think Bridget better be careful there, because she might grow a massive nose like Pinocchio. That was the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, this morning, who said the UK has played a key role to reach a ceasefire behind the scenes. But is that really true? I'll reveal it all next on The Late Show Live. Back in just a tick.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is a very special event. They had 500,000 people yesterday and today in Israel, and also the Muslim and Arab countries are all cheering. Everybody's cheering at one time. That's never happened before. Usually if you have one cheering, the other isn't. The other is the opposite. This is the first time everybody is amazed and they're thrilled, and it's an honor to be involved, and we're going to have an amazing time. And
welcome back to the Late Show Live. I'm Ben Leo, and that, of course, was President Donald Trump before boarding Air Force One today ahead of the Gaza Peace Summit. We'll have all the latest details here on GB News. And if you've just tuned in, the Israeli hostages could be released from Gaza any hour now on this historic evening for the Middle East and for the world. So stay with us on the Late Show Live. You may be surprised. Maybe they'll be released during our show, which would be something special. Moving on, sticking with Gaza slightly. Did you see this morning? Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson claimed, bizarrely, that the UK government had been involved in diplomatic efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza.
We have played a key role behind the scenes in shaping this. It's right that we do so because it's in all of our interest, including our own national interest, that we move to a lasting peace in the region.
Yeah, she said the Labour government had played a key role behind the scenes in getting to this point so far. Of course, those comments were instantly slammed. The US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, wrote on X, "I assure you, she's delusional. She can thank Donald Trump anytime," just to set the record straight. And the former spokesman for the State of Israel, Elon Levy, said, "It's really embarrassing to watch the British government scramble to take credit for this ceasefire agreement. It did nothing but actively sabotage the talks." And of course, Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel, she needed no excuse to weigh in. She said, "Starmer played no role in brokering this important ceasefire. He spent months undermining Israel, emboldening Hamas and fueling anti-Semitism across the UK. It is an insult to the victims of Hamas and the people of Gaza who have suffered from Hamas's brutality that Labour now claims credit for the work of the United States and our partners in the Middle East. Starmer's prioritised photo opportunities with world leaders above resolving the appalling divisive hatred we're witnessing on our streets towards Britain's Jewish community, which is shameful. This important ceasefire is welcomed. It puts hope above the hatred we've seen for far too long and is the product of the resolute hard work and diplomacy by President Trump and our allies." And it was only weeks ago, wasn't it, that US Secretary of State Marco Rubio previously said how recognising a Palestinian statehood actually hindered negotiations.
Have you noticed that the talks with Hamas fell apart on the day Macron made the unilateral decision that he's going to recognize a Palestinian state? And then you have other people come forward, other countries say, well, if there's not a ceasefire by September, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Well, if I'm Hamas, I basically conclude, let's not do a ceasefire, because we can be rewarded and we can claim it as a victory. So those messages, while largely symbolic in their minds, actually have made it harder to get peace and harder to achieve a deal with Hamas. They feel emboldened.
And Benjamin Netanyahu's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell, also rejected the claim from Bridget Phillipson, stating she would have to contradict the idea that Britain was a leading player behind the scenes. Well, let's get the take now of political commentator Eyal Yacobi. Eyal, great to see you. Big question, what have our Labour government in the UK been smoking?
I echo the statements of... Honestly, I'm going to add to it. I think it's not only delusional, it's evil that you have Secretary Rubio who said, you played the clip of last month, there could have potentially been a ceasefire. However, Starmer and Macron decided that they would take it into their own hands to recognize a Palestinian state, which did nothing but embolden Hamas. So it's yes, delusional, yes, evil. And the fact that now they're taking credit for the ceasefire is honestly pathetic. And you see it on an international stage where the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel is even directly calling them out. Ambassador Huckabee is calling them out. Secretary Rubio called them out last month. And the rhetoric against this pathetic government will probably continue to roll in.
All right, Eyal, in the interest of balance, can you name me something that the UK government, the Labour government, has done positively to help the situation in the Middle East? Anything that you can think of?
I cannot think of anything, if I'm being totally honest. They've hurt British people by bringing in Gazans, but that's basically it.
Yeah, okay. Well, what's your thoughts about the situation tonight? The hostages could be released any hour now. I think Hamas have until 10 a.m. Israel time to release those, well, living and dead hostages. President Trump yesterday saying that the deceased were just as important to get back as those who are living as well. What's your thoughts about how the next couple of hours are going to pan out and what it means for the world?
I think President Trump has done a phenomenal job, along with Secretary Rubio, Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff, to actually get this deal over the finish line. I think it's truly a time to celebrate across the world. You see Israelis in the street celebrating the fact that their loved ones are coming home. You see Gazans in the Gaza Strip celebrating the fact that the war will be ending. And then you have useful idiots in London and New York that are protesting the ceasefire because Hamas doesn't get enough out of it.
Did you see me in New York on Monday? Did you see any clips online?
I walked through one of the protests when I was emerging from the subway, and it was just such a sad. It's truly just a sad moment in the West where you have these pro-Palestinian leftists who are more infuriated by Hamas lowering its weapons and releasing the hostages than actual Palestinians who have to suffer under the grip of Hamas.
Yeah, I just wonder if those protests will continue. We had some in London yesterday, despite the ceasefire on Friday. So is it just about the killing? Is it just about securing peace? I don't know. I'm going to introduce my panel now, Eyal. They're going to ask you some questions, if you don't mind, and just have a chat. It's foreign correspondent Sarah Firth and the Daily Mail's US political reporter Victoria Churchill. Welcome, ladies. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Go for it.
Eyal, a little bit of a tough one for you, but you know, when we talk about condemning the left for their stance on criticising Israel for what's happened over the last 2 years, I'm just wondering your thoughts on the fact that right now, as the dust literally settles on this ceasefire deal, you have the likes of Save the Children and UNICEF saying that there are some 20,000 children that have been killed throughout the course of the war. So when we're talking about moral clarity in this moment, do you accept that there is some justifiable criticism that is aimed at Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, not least from the hostage families and the civilians of Israel on the ground right now?
Of course, there's criticism. I don't think there's any war in the history of mankind where you cannot criticize one or the other side for mishaps or doing things wrong. When you're facing a terrorist organization, and we've seen report after report of Hamas embedding themselves under hospitals, as we saw with Mohammed Sinwar when he was killed, it was physically in a bunker under a hospital, and I believe Khan Yunis, whether you see Hamas leaders openly saying that we want the blood of women and children to spill in the streets of Gaza in order to convince the world that Israel is genocidal. We see these things time and time again. And I think the sad reality is that in 2005, Palestinians elected Hamas to lead the Gaza Strip. And since 2005, Hamas has done everything in its power to put civilians in harm's way. But if your question is, are there mistakes that Bibi Netanyahu made or other people in his war cabinet? Of course, I've voiced multiple concerns throughout the war at Benjamin Netanyahu, and I don't think it's been a perfect war by any means, but I think comparatively to what happened, let's say, in Mosul, it has been a phenomenal job by Israel to avoid civilian casualties.
Victoria, got any questions?
Yeah, my question for you is, I was wondering if you could speak to the importance of getting, unfortunately, the bodies of the deceased. My knowledge of Jewish faith is a little bit limited, but my understanding is that, having the bodies to physically bury them is quite important. So I was wondering if you could talk to that. I heard J.D. Vance talking earlier about, obviously the 20 living hostages that will be coming back, but I believe it's 28 deceased bodies that are still, going to be in these tunnels underground and hopefully being returned to these families. But if you could speak to that.
I think that's honestly a question that remains unknown, is how many of these hostage bodies are actually going to be able to retrieve. Obviously, there's some that are potentially under rubble. Potentially, Hamas also doesn't even know where some of them are. Some of them could be held by other terrorist organizations like Islamic Jihad or potential just Gazan clans in general. And so I think that is a large part of what honestly isn't known. And what I pray for now is that, number one, we don't see the same grotesque videos like what happened with Shiri Bibas and her two little boys when they paraded them in the streets of Gaza. And I hope that as of the 28 hostages that are believed to be deceased, number one, potentially some of them aren't deceased and we simply don't know. And number two is that as many bodies can come home as possible. I know personally as an American, there's still Itai Chen and Omer Nutra, whose parents I've spoken to before, who want their boys back in order to give them a proper burial and properly mourn the loss of their children.
Yeah. Let me just play you and the viewers and the listeners back home in Britain this clip from earlier I mentioned. It's some hostage families speaking to President Trump on the phone. Let's take a quick look.
We know you've done so much for us over the past, since you became a president, and even before that. And we trust you'll fulfill the mission until every hostage, every 48 of the hostages are home. Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
Could you imagine our Prime Minister Keir Starmer kind of doing that? I mean, it's Trump's sort of personable character and his warmth that I think a lot of people like and they're drawn to. Just tell us your thoughts, your reaction on that clip.
I think President Trump has been a beacon for these hostage families since he came into office. I had the opportunity to be at the White House multiple times this year, and at every event at the White House, the hostage families were brought up and put in the forefront. We saw Idan Alexander get released just a couple months ago. We saw his family meet with President Trump multiple times. We've seen Trump every time, whether it was speaking at the UN or speaking to the media. He always says, remember October 7th, remember that the hostages are still there. And he has truly made that, I think, a watermark moment in his presidency, not just in Gaza, but he's released hostages across the world, and I don't think he's getting enough credit for it.
Well said. Eyal, thank you very much. Eyal Yacobi, political commentator, and hopefully we'll catch up again very soon. Take care, mate. Thanks for your company. Let us know what you think, guys, at home. gbnews.com/you'll say right-wing extremist extraordinaire, because I love my country. That's your username. Very funny. Said, I really do hope that Trump tears Starmer a new one live on TV for being such a liar. I said that last night, actually. I said it'd be great if they got to Egypt and President Trump got a big projector screen out and put the clip of him recognising Palestine as a state up, and then Rubio's comments about how Britain had hindered proceedings and just zoomed in on Keir Starmer's face. What else have we got? Beverly Pierce, good evening, Beverly. You said Priti Patel was so right. And Andy said, Starmer being outed worldwide as a world-leading liar. Yeah, I mean, that's. I am trying to find some balance with regards to the Labour government and Keir Starmer in this whole Gaza situation. Sarah, let me ask you, what has the UK done to help?
Well, I've got a little bit of balance for you because I think it's important to point out the UK's government, Keir Starmer, are pledging £20 million to Gaza reconstruction. So that's expected to be announced tomorrow at the gathering. That's going to go towards water, sanitation. That's part of a bigger pledge that they did for, I think, over £100 million overall when it comes to the reconstruction. So that is going to be key. I think unquestionably a bit embarrassing for the Prime Minister to have landed amidst this controversy because of Bridget Phillipson's comments. You had, as you said, Ben, the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, sort of putting her in her place, really, calling her delusional and saying, look, anytime you want to correct the record and thank President Trump, you can. And we're already seeing Keir Starmer really trying to make amends, mentioning President Trump in basically every sentence. But the regional impact here is going to be key moving forward. So beyond this stage, President Trump is going to need the UK as well as the regional leaders rallying around this deal.
Do you think Keir Starmer would have got off that plane in Egypt and saw that Bridget Phillipson clip and just thought, what the hell are you doing? What do you think the repercussions would be for Bridget Phillipson?
Head in hands at something like that ahead of such a critical moment. I mean, it's just the diplomatic gaffe of extraordinary amounts. I mean, embarrassing.
Okay, thank you for that. You can come back. I'll still have a job, so you can return. Right, coming up next on The Late Show Live.
Because you are now...
Oh dear, look, I'm not a Kamala fan, but I don't like heckling that much. It was another day of Kamala Harris being heckled by an audience member during her book tour. The book, by the way, if you weren't aware, claims that it was one of the closest elections in US history. Of course, forgetting that they lost the Electoral College, they lost the popular vote, they got the House, they got the Senate, they were rinsed from East Coast to West Coast. But anyway, we'll show you her full response to that very shortly. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel. People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Trump. Thank you, Trump. Thank you, Trump.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. That wasn't President Trump in Israel, it was an impersonator, it was an imposter, if you hadn't guessed. That was people gathering in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square ahead of Hamas releasing the remaining hostages in the coming hours. Stick with us on The Late Show Live and, of course, on GB News in the coming hours. We'll have all the latest details and hopefully a live stream of when the hostages are finally released. God bless them. For the time being, let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages hitting the shelves in Blighty tomorrow, starting with my favourite newspaper, The Guardian. Hostages set for freedom in key step to end the Gaza war. And there's a nice snap there of the late Diane Keaton, who has died aged 79, quoted as being a legend, an icon and a truly kind human being. The Metro tomorrow, the headline reads, "The day they feared would never come." Actually, pretty decent headline. Can you imagine, just for a second, in the shoes of those hostages in whatever torrid conditions they were kept in Gaza, probably some basement room somewhere for 2 years. Could you imagine they ever thought this day would come, that they would be finally released and reunited with their families? The Sun tomorrow, Rashford's £15 million nightmare over dream home. This is Marcus Rashford, the England and former Man United footballer. Ace's 5-year building bill. Well, I'm getting my home renovated, so I feel his pain, not by £15 million. So. The Times, hopes and prayers as hostages are set for release. And up the top there, China assured that Labour would progress the super embassy. So, I mean, we'll have to talk about this later on tonight, but China was assured apparently by the Labour government that their super embassy in London, which funnily had no plans revealed for the basement or the lower floors. Who knows what the hell was going on down there? So that's something to talk about certainly. And the New York Post, this side of the pond, the New York Times, Israel and Hamas were not ready for a comprehensive peace deal. That's according to a mediator. And the Qatari Prime Minister said that Gaza war mediators decided to delay talks on more difficult issues so a hostage prisoner swap could be concluded quickly. And the Washington Post, a conservative influencer was arrested in Portland. The president was watching after Nick Sautor was arrested earlier this month outside a nice facility in Portland. President Donald Trump latched on to justify a federal crackdown. Paul Cox is down the line, GB News superstar, beaming in live from London to go through the papers. Paul, good morning to you. What story would you like to get stuck into?
Never. By the way, Ben, I am never going to get bored of you calling me a superstar. You are the best, mate. How are you doing?
£5 a pop, mate. They're all adding up. They're totting up.
Right, great stuff. So we have got a lot of things to talk about here. We'll get on to all the things you've been talking about, the great news with Trump and what's going on with the peace deal. I mean, really here, the big story is twofold. It's Rashford, and I don't care about that, neither do you, mate. And it's China. It's China. So we had this big case here last week where the Crown Prosecution Service were unable to bring a conviction against somebody on the basis that the UK government were able to say that maybe, just maybe, China are a bit of an adversary of ours. And the reason they can't do that is because because we are so beholden to them. Our whole economy is underpinned by China, and far much more than it ever really should be. And that's down to successive governments betting the UK's future on China. And of course, this Chinese embassy right in the middle of London, with rooms in there that even MI6 and MI5 are not allowed to know anything about, is incredibly suspicious. With assurances, we're told by, I believe, the Times, that Labour have already given China assurances that this will be built. I don't know if that's true. How would I know? Imagine if I was the person that had all the information, Ben. I don't. But I have been trying to figure out all evening, I still haven't quite got there, Ben, why the Chinese Communist Party and the UK Labour Party seem to be so well linked, Ben. I'm sure it will come to me at some point. I don't know what it is now. Perhaps I'm just a conspiracy theorist. But one thing I do know is that we have no choice. We have absolutely no choice. We have bet, as many countries have, our future on the Chinese economy. I wish we hadn't. I wish we had much closer ties with the US. It's predicted that China will have 25% of the global economy over the next 50 years. That still leaves 75% by my maths. And I think if the UK and the US and most of the Western countries could align together, then it wouldn't be an issue. But I'm afraid that doesn't look like that's going to be the case, Ben.
Paul, you made an interesting point there. What could our government, this Labour government, in what capacity could they sympathise with the communists? The communists in China. Of course, Keir Starmer was editor of a Trotsky magazine in his heyday. Rachel Reeves had a portrait of a leading communist in her number 11 office. I mean, so what is the link?
Look, much like you, Ben, I can't quite put my finger on it. It could be, and I'm not entirely sure, it could be something to do with communism. I don't know. Get back to me on that. Give me another hour, Ben. Get me another hour and I will get back to you on that.
All right. You go and do some digging, Paul, and we'll resume the communist investigation shortly. Paul Cox in London, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We'll see you in the next hour or so.
Cheers, Ben.
Right, coming up, a reform councillor in Scotland was reported to the police for, not for drug dealing, not for burglary, not for harassment, but for a rather more bizarre reason. We'll have all the details next, and it will shock you. Can you imagine? Let me have your guesses. gbnews.com/your say. What was a reform councillor in Scotland reported to the police for? Back in just a tick on The Late Show Live.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. Now, a Reform UK councillor has been reported to the police after comments made during an STV interview about anti-migrant protests. Take a look.
It's a true unrest, and it's scary. It's scary as a local resident, somebody who's born and bred here. I shouldn't have said that.
Well, do you see why this is? People sometimes think that Reform are very much against having people
that just
here.
Came out. It just came out.
That's
Oh, what are you doing? What's wrong with saying born and bred here? She's obviously been totally entrapped by the far left media, the mainstream media. What's wrong with saying born and bred in Scotland? Anyway, the councillor took to social media and confirms that an anonymous malicious complaint had been submitted to the cops regarding that comment made during the interview. I mean, it's just insane. Let's get the take of comedian, social media superstar here in the United States, Alex Stein. Alex, good evening, mates. Thank you for your company. What's wrong with saying born and bred in Scotland?
Absolutely nothing. But in Scotland, they're going to write a 22-page thesis accusing this woman of being a racist. And that's the problem, is that we have people that are just way too sensitive. And having pride, you know, being proud that you're born in Scotland is not something you should be ashamed about. And I don't understand why asylum seekers get better hotels. I mean, she's talking about how asylum seekers are getting free social services, free hotels, the same issues happening here in America where people are struggling. But the asylum seekers get more rights and more benefits than those of the natural born citizens. So I'm happy that she called it out. But the fact that she felt so guilty, it shows you that, you know, these politicians need to have a little more courage, a little more of a backbone. Immediately apologizing like that made her look very weak.
Yeah, she just bottled it. I mean, as an American, right, Alex, you're involved deeply in the culture wars. You have been for many years. You've mixed with the great and the good here in America. When you see that kind of thing, what's your perception of Britain?
Well, I mean, Britain is cooked. I hate to say it, but I mean, just the multiculturalism. And it's not like we don't want immigrants to come from other countries. Same with here in America. We want immigration, but we don't want our whole entire heritage to be wiped out. And I know people say, oh, it's some conspiracy theory, that, you know, white replacement theory. It's not even about that. It's just having national pride and wanting to have your own citizens that have the same social services as asylum seekers that come here and have been here for 5 minutes. So it's not a thing about bigotry. It's just wanting the same as everybody else. We want the level. We want the playing field leveled and not tilted in asylum seekers and immigrants' favor.
Alex, before I move on, is that fire behind you real?
Yes, it is, and it's hot. And I'm in Texas, and it's hot. And I'm the pimp on a blend.
You're wearing a suit.
Yeah, I'm wearing a suit. Hey, listen, we're about to open a bottle of wine. We're relaxing. I know it's late where you're at, but it's early in the evening, so the party's just getting started. But on a serious note, though, Ben, can you imagine that we live in a world where a woman has to immediately apologize for just saying that I was born and bred here? I mean, where are we at in society where she even felt like she was guilty? I mean, we've been brainwashed into this, I guess, virtue signaling, social justice, woke mind virus that we talk about a lot, but it's real, and you can see her reaction. It was very disheartening.
Yeah. All right, Alex, one more clip for you. If you think the UK is cooked, you'll probably think we're absolutely burnt to the crisp after this next video. This is the moment a Labour MP in Britain commented on this new sort of campaign in the UK about raising the flags. I know you guys in America do it proudly, you do it boldly. I've been in DC 5 or 6 weeks now. There's flags everywhere. I love it. This is what our Labour MPs think of it in Britain. Take a look.
Then I see flags
painted on roundabouts. And that is just a bit weird. And you know, because you've seen it online and I see it in my inbox, that this does make people feel uneasy. And they ask, what message are these flags supposed to be sending? Now look, I'll take people at their words. People who say this is about national pride. I'm proud of my country too, and I'm proud of our flag. But I do understand why others feel that it's about excluding people. Why others feel that it's about saying who belongs here and who doesn't. I'll be asking the Reform County Council to take down the flags on the lampposts.
Yeah, get lost. Ted Cruz tweeted about this. He said, utterly tragic, a great nation with so many eager to surrender it entirely. And Laura Ingraham this afternoon said, who has any doubt that if they could do so legally, Democrats in the US would support a ban on flying the American flag on grounds that its presence offends certain residents? What's your reaction to that video just in there, Alex?
Well, the only way that you could be offended by having your national flag flown, whether it's a British flag or an American flag, is if you're an actual enemy. I mean, why would you not want the flag of the country that you're in to be flown? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And even in that clip, he talks about how he was proud of the country where he was born. So it's absolutely ridiculous. And if that flag does offend you, then that is a good thing. You're an enemy, and you probably need to be deported, because there's no way we live in a common society where you look at that flag and you feel some sort of way. We've really got to be less sensitive.
Well, I think that guy is British. He was born in Britain, so he's British, so he can't be deported anywhere.
No.
Look, I support his right to say and believe what he thinks, so fine, fair enough. But I mean, as you said, I think we're in a cooked situation when people are telling us to take our flags down. Alex, thanks for your company, mate. Really appreciate it. Take that suit jacket off and go and get a nice cold Coke or a beer or something. Cool yourself down. That was Alex Stein there, top social media star in the US, political commentator. Right, more coming up in the next hour.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
Well, he wouldn't be sweating by that fire in Alex's front room, would he? Leaked emails suggest Prince Andrew lied about cutting ties with Epstein. More on that, plus the hostages released imminently after the break.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's a foggy start out there for some of us, but the sunshine will slowly break through as we go through the course of the day. Apart from in northern Scotland, where it will stay pretty damp, so some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle perhaps here for much of the day, particularly for the Northern Isles. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland as well, but largely dry. The best of the sunshine this afternoon across central and southern parts of Scotland, northern England, Wales, and more southern parts of the UK having a much sunnier picture this afternoon compared to yesterday too. So after the early fog has cleared this morning, temperatures will lift in that sunshine up to 16, perhaps as high as 18 degrees Celsius by this afternoon, so feeling fairly pleasant with the light winds. It won't be quite as warm though across northern parts of Scotland, where after a fairly cloudy and murky day with some bits and pieces of drizzle, it will be once again a cloudy evening. So here generally staying quite cloudy right the way through the course of the night. Some late sunshine for western parts of Scotland. Northern Ireland probably brightening up a little bit through the afternoon, but fairly cloudy skies here also into the evening. Clear skies though for Wales and western parts of England, at least as we go through Sunday evening. But gradually, as we go through the course of the coming night, we are going to see an area of cloud once again just returning from the North Sea, spreading its way westwards into western parts of England and Wales by the time we get to the early hours of Monday morning. So that cloud acting like a blanket, keeping temperatures from falling too low tonight. So lows of 8 to 11 degrees Celsius in the main towns and cities. But some patchy fog and some rural frost across parts of Scotland to begin the day on Monday morning. So here, away from the fog, probably the brightest conditions on Monday with some sunny spells and fairly nice and sunny conditions across parts of the far north of England too on Monday. Brightening up for Northern Ireland as well by the afternoon, but most of England and Wales having a slightly cooler and certainly a much gloomier picture on Monday compared to on Sunday. Temperatures down by a degree or so, but in the best of the sunshine, highs of 15 to 17 degrees Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tonight on The Late Show Live, history could be made. The hostages will be released imminently. Hello, good morning. On The Late Show Live tonight.
The war is over. The war is over, okay? You understand that?
President Donald Trump lands in the Middle East at midday tomorrow. He says it is one of the biggest achievements of his life, achieving peace in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer lands in Egypt. There he is, jeans and a jacket, as he pledges Britain will take a big part in rebuilding Gaza. And jubilation on the streets of Gaza and Israel. Israelis there gather to celebrate the release of the hostages, who are expected to be freed at any moment now. Stay tuned. Also tonight,
we have played a key role behind the scenes in shaping this. It's right that we do so.
Whoopsie, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson is caught out after claiming that the UK was a key player in the Gaza peace deal. What do you think about that? We'll also be diving headfirst into the stories from tomorrow's newspapers, hours before they hit the shelves in Blighty, including... We're live in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that matter to Britain, including this one.
You know what? I am not President of the United States. You want to go to the White House and talk to him
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Former US Vice President, as she wishes, President Kamala Harris is taunted again while promoting her new book. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live, and your night's just getting started. Hello, good morning to you. Thank you for your company. At any moment now, Hamas is set to release at least 20 Israeli hostages. About time too. Under the terms of the ceasefire deal, Hamas have until 12 local time, 10 a.m. in the UK, to release the 20-odd hostages and 25 bodies of hostages as well, those who have been deceased. Israeli President Isaac Herzog spoke earlier today.
We've always said, bring back the hostages, it will change the Middle East. As soon as the hostages are back, Israel is not going to war. Israel is committed to fulfilling this agreement, and Israel wants to seek peace with its neighbors and bring a change to the future of
the take of my panel tonight here in DC, the foreign correspondent Sarah Firth and the Daily Mail's US political reporter Victoria Churchill. Welcome back, ladies. Victoria, we could see in a matter of hours these hostages released. Just remind our viewers who are maybe just tuning in for the first time tonight what this means for the Middle East, what it means for the world, and indeed for President Trump and his presidency.
Well, it means a lot of different things, of course, to a lot of different people. You know, obviously, we also have to remember this is actually the second time that Donald Trump has made peace in the Middle East. Of course, we had the Abraham Accords during his first presidency. Then Joe Biden came into office. Things kind of went down the toilet. And then now he's back and he is making these deals all over the world. Of course, I think this means the most to the families of the hostages, particularly of the 20 living hostages, which we are, hoping will be returned any minute now, any hour now, as Trump is on his way to Israel first, then to Egypt to formalize the rest of this deal with lots of other world leaders in front of him. But, it also does mean a lot for his presidency because he's had a lot of people doubting him. The Democrats have kind of had to eat crow and really give him compliments for this. Everybody from U.S. senators to even his former opponent Hillary Clinton, who of course had some time in diplomacy as Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Even she had to say kudos Trump. And from that clip with the Education Secretary, even Keir Starmer is having to say kudos to Trump. And actually, we had very little to do with this from the UK side.
Yeah.
So I think it's good all around. Lots of the Trump haters, lots of the people with Trump derangement syndrome are kind of sitting back a little bit.
Yeah, it could be a great night. Sarah, your thoughts?
Yes, well, Ben, actually, let's bring you a little bit of an update on what's expected, because American media are now reporting that they are expecting the hostages to be released in 3 batches from 2 separate locations. So they're saying 8 a.m. local time is the first 2 batches of hostages, and a third at another location an hour later. Now, of course, it's the middle of night in Israel at the moment, but preparations are underway at Hostage Square. You can imagine that the families of the hostages will not be getting much sleep tonight as they anxiously await this ceasefire deal to actually go through. The live coverage is going to be broadcast in Hostage Square of the hopeful release of all those prisoners. That is starting at 4 a.m. local time. So just towards the end of our show, Ben, everyone on tenterhooks here, right?
Wow, that's an interesting development. So 3 batches, so 4 a.m. local time, which is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, it's 9 p.m. here,
yep.
9, 10, 11, and 2 a.m. in the UK. So we may just miss it on GB News. If it happens a little bit earlier, we may get them. That's very interesting, and it'll be live streams.
Yeah, live streamed into Hostage Square, and everyone you can imagine in Israel right now just waiting on tenterhooks for the return of their loved ones. More than 700 days, Ben, that they've been held there inside Gaza.
Wow, what a moment that could be. Let's go live now to Jonathan Haronouf, international spokesperson for Israel at the United Nations. Jonathan, good evening. Have I pronounced your surname correctly, first of all?
Perfect. Great to be with you, Ben.
Good, thank you. What's your thoughts on what could happen in the coming hours? How momentous is this evening?
Well, I agree with your panel. The entire nation of Israel, and I believe the world, is holding its breath. We are just hours away from seeing the beginning of the end of this 2-year nightmare and the start of a period of intense healing and, I hope, further peace, further normalization. But if I were to characterize the feelings that are currently being had on Hostage Square and the rest of Israel, I would say it's a mixture of deep happiness, but also intense trepidation for a number of reasons. Until all of the hostages are brought home, there's going to be, a mixture of anticipation, but also concern. and B, because of the tremendous price that Israel's paying in order to bring back these hostages. Remember, this isn't a perfect deal for Israel. This involves releasing convicted terrorists with the blood of Israelis and the blood of Jews on their hands. And finally, there's also trepidation because of the incalculable toll this war that was waged by Hamas 2 years ago has had on the people of Israel, on the victims of October the 7th, on the indefatigably brave IDF soldiers, on the survivors of the October 7th massacre who still bear the physical, mental and invisible scars of that horrific day. And it's important to mention that final bit because there are still many survivors of October the 7th who are carrying the pain of that day, and specifically a very brave, extraordinary individual. We just heard horrible news of Roy Shalev, who survived the Nova Music Festival on October the 7th, but he witnessed the execution of his girlfriend, Mapal, on that day at the hands of Hamas. And he was unable to cope with that pain, and just days after the 2-year October 7th anniversary, we learned that he had died by suicide, unable to cope with that pain. So these coming days are going to be, I pray, will be moments of elation, ecstasy, jubilation with the return of our hostages, but we must also not forget the many brave victims of October the 7th from that day, their families, the fallen soldiers and the survivors who struggle every day.
Yeah, well said. I saw the news of that poor chap who took his own life. You just imagine how many other people were feeling similar situations of despair, those who survived Nova. You get this thing called kind of survivor guilt, don't you? It's a thing where people question themselves. Why was it them who avoided death? How, you know, why did they survive and their loved ones not? And witnessing your partner, your girlfriend, your wife being executed in cold blood. Poor bloke. Can I ask you though, sorry, just before I move on, I need to correct something. So the hostages will be released in batches. I'm working across 3 time zones here, so my brain was scrambled. So in the UK, for UK viewers watching and listening now, the first batch should come out at 6 a.m. UK time, not 2 a.m. So 6 a.m. just for any viewers and listeners tuned in now. You mentioned that the deal isn't perfect, isn't ideal for Israel because, of course, they're having to release hundreds, maybe as it's 1,200 Palestinian terrorists. Why didn't they just finish the job then? Because it sounds like Hamas were on their last knees. Why didn't they just turn the screw and finish the job they set out to do?
Look, Israel, from the very outset of this war started by Hamas, laid out its objectives. And this deal that was pioneered to an extraordinary degree by President Trump and his amazing administration helped Israel achieve its objectives. It helps bring back primarily, first and foremost, the 48 hostages, the deceased and the living who are still held in Hamas terror tunnels. It dismantles and begins the process of demilitarizing Hamas, the terrorist organization, so that Gaza can have a brighter future. And it puts the Middle East on a path of peace and prosperity. So that's the reason why Israel has came into this into these negotiations in good faith, and will, as you showed a footage of President Herzog mentioning, Israel is going to abide by the terms of this deal and will work towards a future of peace, not conflict.
Okay, just one more question from me, then I'll bring my panel in who want to speak to you, if you don't mind, Jonathan. The future of Gaza is still up in the air. We don't know how Hamas will disarm. We don't know what the control and the rebuilding effort looks like, the power who controls Gaza following this. What would you like to see as a spokesperson for Israel at the UN? How would you and Benjamin Netanyahu's government like to see Gaza rebuilt and managed from here on?
It has to be rebuilt and spearheaded by people who prioritize the prosperity and peace of its own people, of the people of Gaza, over the death and destruction of the people of Israel. Sounds like a basic requirement, but that has to be first and foremost the requirement. And I think President Trump, the way he constructed his 20-point peace plan that was put into effect by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and his team, really does help us achieve that goal. So that's the first priority, but that's going to be the more difficult aspect of this agreement. You know, the first aspect, the exchange, is a bit easier because it involves Israel receiving hostages in exchange for these terrorists. The second part, the second phase, is a bit more difficult. It involves Hamas, the terrorist organization, handing over its weapons, beginning that process of demilitarization, and us beginning to work towards a future in Gaza that is centered on peace as opposed to conflict.
Okay, I'm just going to bring my panel in now. We've got Sarah Firth, international correspondent, and the Daily Mail's US political reporter, Victoria Churchill. Who wants to go first? Sarah, you go first.
Yeah, Jonathan, we've heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's spoken about a new era for Israel and a path for healing and rebuilding. I completely agree with you that the sticking points when it comes to what will be discussed in the second phase, those are not small. They've scuppered past deals. Are you confident that both Israel, the regional players that are putting that pressure on Hamas, President Trump, will be able to sustain the pressure needed once we see this first phase complete to actually get the second phase through to see this long-term peace on the ground? And as the Israeli Prime Minister said, that this path for healing and rebuilding actually be taken this time. How confident are you?
I'm very confident for a number of reasons. First, as the B-roll is showing on the screen, President Trump is all in on this. He pioneered this extraordinary deal in close partnership with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He made it even before he became president. He was campaigning on bringing peace to the Middle East, and it's right at the top of his foreign policy agenda. And he's seen tremendous success. He's deployed his top officials and people in order to bring about peace, and we've seen the kind of momentum really take shape in the past couple of days. So I really do believe that we are on the right track. On top of that, we've seen a lot of Muslim majority and Arab nations also buy into this and promote it and pressure Hamas on their side to come to the negotiating table. Israel did a tremendous job militarily and diplomatically to bring Hamas to the negotiating table. The US also played a tremendous role, and the Arab and Muslim majority countries also played their part in order to bring Hamas to the negotiating table. They've been so weakened so militarily, so much so militarily, that I think they've had no choice but to come to the table.
And Jonathan, sorry to jump in from the panel, but one more question. I'm so interested. What conversations are you having tonight with colleagues, with people that you know on the ground? What are Israelis saying in this very, very anxious wait now in the lead up to the hostages being released? What are you hearing?
It's almost like a miracle. Like every single person who has some connection to Israel, whether they're Israeli or has family from Israel, knows someone intimately who was either tragically killed or injured or affected by October the 7th. So this is very much a miracle that we're seeing finally the return of all of these hostages brutally taken from us, from communities, from their homes. And there's really, you're seeing for the first time in a very long time, people, breathing a sigh of relief. Smiles everywhere, people actually talking about peace for the first time in a very long time. So while we remain very cautious, ready for any kind of eventuality, we are optimistic that this is, unlike past instances where we were close to a kind of ceasefire, but that never materialized. So we're very optimistic.
Great stuff, Jonathan. Thank you. Victoria, have you got a question for Jonathan?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to what you see this meaning for Netanyahu domestically. I believe I saw a report, and feel free to correct me if there's any part of this that's wrong, but that there was the rally Saturday night, at least based on U.S. time, with Ivanka and Jared and Special Envoy Witkoff, where he talked about the deal, bringing it around, and that Netanyahu was actually booed when President Trump was cheered. So just talk a little bit about how that climate you see it playing out for the Prime Minister.
The past 2 years in Israel can only be characterized by, tremendous unease, tension, pain, suffering. And Israel, as a vibrant democracy, does have protests. It does allow people to express their views, and it does hold periodic elections for people to decide who they want to lead them. So the clip that you're referring to, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were addressing Hostage Square, and people were booing, but what you also saw was Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner express just how pivotal a role Prime Minister Netanyahu played in bringing about this deal, bringing us all to the moment that we're in now, working hand in hand with President Trump and being, as President Trump mentioned, this wartime Prime Minister president who has really sort of galvanized the nation, led with strength and brought us to this point. But ultimately, Israel is a democracy. People have the right to protest. People have the right to vote in elections and decide who they want to lead. We're going to have elections come up in the not so distant future, and people will be able to decide who they want to lead them. You can't say the same thing about other parts in the Middle East, especially not Gaza in its current state. But Israel is a democracy, and people have the right to protest and to decide to dictate their future.
Jonathan Haranoff, thank you very much, international spokesperson for Israel at the United Nations. Really appreciate your company tonight, and good luck going forward. We wait with bated breath for the release of the hostages, which, just to clarify, is 6 a.m. UK time. So if you're tuning into breakfast tomorrow, what's the day? Eamon and Ellie, I think, is on breakfast. They could be bringing you the live pictures from those hostages being released in Hostage Square in Israel. Oh, it's in Gaza, isn't it, Sarah? Hostage Square?
Hostage Square in Israel, Tel Aviv.
Technically in Israel.
Yeah.
OK, gbnews.com/your say. Jan, you've said, I honestly don't know how the final 20 living hostages will cope after being held captive for 2 long years. It will be a long recovery process, but at least we know that Israel authorities will give them all the medical and mental health care they will need. Yeah, indeed. Well said. Right, stick around, because still ahead on The Late Show Live.
Because you are now...
Oh, I feel a bit sorry for her, actually. That's President, again, I've said it again, former Vice President Kamala Harris. She wishes she was president, firing back at protesters during her Chicago book tour over Gaza criticism. We'll bring you that very shortly. But also tonight, the White House has reportedly warned the UK over its China spy case fiasco. What impact will this have over US-UK relations? Also in the context of this whole Gaza situation as well, with Bridget Phillipson not crediting President Trump, saying the UK played a key role behind the scenes. No, we didn't. Is the US maybe, is the Trump administration getting a bit weary with Labour and Keir Starmer? We'll debate that next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
China, 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 China.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. The White House is reportedly absolutely furious with Sir Keir Starmer over the failure to prosecute 2 Brits accused of spying for China, saying it could threaten the special relationship and intelligence sharing between the UK and the US. President Trump is understood to be concerned about the UK's reliability after charges were dropped against 2 Brits accused of spying for the CCP. The charges were dropped after the government failed to provide evidence that China was a threat to national security. What a joke. Here's what Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson had to say to Camilla Tominey earlier today.
Well, we are clear as a government that China presents opportunities but challenges and threats alongside that.
So it is a threat?
Yeah, there are threats and challenges that come. It's why we take a strategic approach to China. And it's why, alongside that, we are clear that this government's number one responsibility is to the national security of our country. Of course, we need to engage with China. They're a big economy. But what comes first is our national...
Let's get the take of former government advisor on cybersecurity, Andrew Jenkinson. Andrew, good morning. Thanks for your company. What's your take on this sorry fiasco? I mean, there's so many adjectives to use. Sure. I mean, it just makes the UK look a bit silly, doesn't it?
We've been doing that for a long time, Ben, and good evening. Welcome. Thanks for having me on. We did a paper for the Joint Cyber National Security Strategy Committee, which overlooked the intelligence agencies back in 2023, just under 2 years ago. And the topic of that subject was China espionage and the inability of the intelligence agencies to provide security for the UK government. That was our own government criticising our own intelligence agencies. So this narrative, we've got to be really careful of, that these 2 young chaps that possibly were doing something they shouldn't is a little bit like two children stealing a Mars bar from a corner shop. It really is quite not important at all compared to what is going on in the UK national service and security side, which is like Swiss cheese. It's full of holes.
So what is going on? Tell us, just enlighten us from your expertise on cybersecurity.
Well, look, the bottom line on it, Ben, is we've been playing the Cold War in the digital realm. Ever since the Cold War's never stopped, it just moved into the digital environment, and everything's connected on the internet, and everything is being swapped and exchanged left, right, and center using the same servers, the same compromised servers for our intelligence agencies, for our Home Office, for our Department of Defense, for the Ministry of Defense, for the NHS. You know, we're seeing cyber attacks every day. Marks and Spencer's, Jaguar Land Rover, Co-op, Harrods, the list goes on and on and on. And we are reliant on American technology giants. We own pretty much nothing. We're relying on everything, and assumptions are being made. So technology is our biggest challenge, and it's our biggest threat.
I mean, what the hell's wrong with us then? Why do we own nothing? Why haven't we got our own sort of cybersecurity defences? Just, I mean, for people that have no clue about this kind of stuff, just explain in layman's terms, Andrew, why we aren't supported. I mean, what's wrong with us?
Yeah, I think if we go back to history and politics, around the Margaret Thatcher time, we were selling off and privatising everything, and a lot of the American companies were buying it up. You know, there's a great book out at the moment called The Vassal State, which is a really interesting read. And literally, if you think about how we're moving into a cashless society, we're using credit cards. Every credit card is owned by an American company. Every email you send is owned by an American technology company. Everything we do, every phone call, every email, every credit card we use is going to America. And America have had 1,000 Chinese spies that they've deported over the last 10 years or so. So this is nothing new. IP theft, Ben, in America is rated to be $600 billion a year. So honestly, these two young guys, as I say, they may have been up to no good, but it's the pea in the ocean compared to what's really going on.
Yeah. Okay, and just finally, Andrew, what do you make of the fact that the US is reportedly getting a bit tetchy with the UK, not just on the China situation, which is a bizarre scandal unravelling day by day. I mean, if you look at the Times newspaper tomorrow, there's a story saying that China was assured that Labour would progress the construction of this super embassy in London. The embassy, by the way, which has a mysterious basement, a mysterious lower floor. Let me just ask you on that. What's going on in that basement?
Well, look, embassies around the world are known to be spy gangs. It's as simple as that. Every embassy around the world is known to be literally a opportunity to spy on the country they're in. So the American government embassy here is the same as ours in Tel Aviv or wherever. The reality is that's what goes on. They're there to spy. And when something goes wrong, as you'll be aware, that they deport a number of the embassy officials because they've been caught red-handed. But no longer are the packets and clandestine meetings going on. This is all done electronically. So whatever's going on in the basement, I should think that they're most probably building servers and other things going on there to try and ring fence and air gap their communications with the homeland, which obviously is Beijing, etc., to try and stop the spying that's going on electronically around the world.
Okay, and just in the context of what's going on with Gaza as well, Bridget Phillipson, not sure if you've seen today, but she was saying the UK played a key role in this Gaza peace deal. She was widely slammed for it. There's reports that the Trump admin were kind of raising their eyebrows at such an absurd comment. Can the US trust the UK? Well, the UK, let's call it the Labour government.
Look, Ben, I've got my own views on this, and I'm rather outspoken on it, so forgive me if I'd say this. The UK does what it's told, the same as NATO, and America pull the strings. Now, there may be a case to answer for America being pulled strings by other countries to get what they want, and there's a lot of political might and lobbying, let's say that, with brown paper envelopes.
Wow. Okay. There we go. Right, I'm going to bring my panel now, Andrew, if you don't mind. Victoria Churchill and Sarah Firth. Victoria, you got a question for Andrew?
I think I've seen some reports that there actually may be some dampering of the level of intelligence sharing between the U.S. and the UK. Can you speak to that and, what that could mean for this? I'm a fan of the UK-US relationship. I'm here right now on the show as an American. But, what do these reports mean for the future of the UK and US relations?
Oh, you still there, Andrew? First of all, it's our old guest, the Israeli spokesman from the UN, who's there. So we'll try and fix that. I think Andrew's gone. We'll try and get him back. What was your question? Sorry, I was busy watching the Israeli chat.
Yeah, my question was just kind of along the lines of I've seen some reports. I believe this was credited to Rubio, but I could be wrong. Yeah. That the U.S. has kind of tempered down the level of information that they're sharing with the UK. Obviously, we're both in Five Eyes.
Yes.
So, I was just wondering if he could comment on that a little bit.
Andrew's back. Andrew, sorry for booting you off. There was nothing you said. We enjoy your company. It was just we closed the wrong box on our computers.
Okay.
Did you hear Victoria's question?
I did. The reality, I don't think it'll make any difference. The truth of it is we're sharing the same servers. And even if our allies became our enemies, there's back doors in everywhere. There's nowhere to hide. So
yeah, maybe it was the Chinese, Andrew, who kicked you off.
It may well be.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about the UK's national security strategy. We know that they didn't categorise China as a threat. They've decided to go along the path of sort of calling China a challenge. How concerning do you think that will be for partners like the United States? And was that a mistake by the UK government?
As I mentioned earlier, it's an interesting question, thank you. But in December 2023, the Joint Cyber National Security Strategy Committee of Parliament actually did say China were a threat for ransomware and fraud, etc. I still think that's the case, but I think as I said, the narrative being projected at the present time, it concerns me greatly because it's very easy to follow social media and narratives that are put out there. But the reality is the UK and most other countries around the world just aren't doing the basics of security, internet, digital security, to actually protect themselves. So it's very easy, if we look at the Marks and Spencer scenario, 6 months on, and they're still as exposed as they were when they suffered a cyber attack in April 2025. You've got to ask the question, if you're in a high crime risk area and you don't close the door, let alone lock the door, what can you expect? And China, like every other country, China, Russia, Korea, Iran, they've learned their tradecraft from us.
Yeah. Andrew, there's some comments coming in on gbnews.com/your say. Tom Astor has said, two comments. One says Amazon Web Service servers cause we sold our digital sovereignty, absolute mug starmers. What does it mean by that? The AWS services. Did we sell our web servers to somebody?
Yeah, there's a group. We've not said, it's slightly misleading, but we've sold a lot of the outsourcing to Amazon, to Google, to Microsoft, to the big players. And the challenge is with virtually all of them, they're not doing their job as well as they'd like to or should do, and assumptions are being made. I won't name the council, but last year I was asked by a friend of mine, a legal expert, who was drawing up the contracts for one council in London, and they were sharing services with 5 others. About 6 million people were in this council, and they were outsourcing to one of those aforementioned companies, and they asked us to look at the security level, and it was atrocious. The CEO of the council turned around and said, I'm not interested in security, I just want to outsource it. Where do you think the problems might come down the line?
Yeah,
so
makes sense. Andrew, thank you so much for your company tonight.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Former government advisor on cybersecurity. Stay safe. Don't let the Chinese kick you off again. Coming up on the Late Show Live.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
Leaked emails suggest Prince Andrew lied about cutting ties with Jeffrey Epstein. The Mail on Sunday today said it was definitive proof he lied in that Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis. Is it time for the royal family to finally cut him off?
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's a foggy start out there for some of us, but the sunshine will slowly break through as we go through the course of the day. Apart from in northern Scotland, where it will stay pretty damp, so some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle perhaps here for much of the day, particularly for the Northern Isles. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland as well, but largely dry. The best of the sunshine this afternoon across central and southern parts of Scotland, northern England, Wales, and more southern parts of the UK having a much sunnier picture this afternoon compared to yesterday too. So after the early fog has cleared this morning, temperatures will lift in that sunshine up to 16, perhaps as high as 18 degrees Celsius by this afternoon, so feeling fairly pleasant with the light winds. It won't be quite as warm though across northern parts of Scotland, where after a fairly cloudy and murky day with some bits and pieces of drizzle, it will be once again a cloudy evening. So here generally staying quite cloudy right the way through the course of the night. Some late sunshine for western parts of Scotland. Northern Ireland probably brightening up a little bit through the afternoon, but fairly cloudy skies here also into the evening. Clear skies though for Wales and western parts of England, at least as we go through Sunday evening. But gradually, as we go through the course of the coming night, we are going to see an area of cloud once again just returning from the North Sea, spreading its way westwards into western parts of England and Wales by the time we get to the early hours of Monday morning. So that cloud acting like a blanket, keeping temperatures from falling too low tonight, so lows of 8 to 11 degrees Celsius in the main towns and cities. But some patchy fog and some rural frost across parts of Scotland to begin the day on Monday morning. So here, away from the fog, probably the brightest conditions on Monday with some sunny spells and fairly nice and sunny conditions across parts of the far north of England too on Monday. Brightening up for Northern Ireland as well by the afternoon, but most of England and Wales having a slightly cooler and certainly a much gloomier picture on Monday compared to on Sunday. Temperatures down by a degree or so, but in the best of the sunshine, highs of 15 to 17 degrees Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. Let's look at the front pages hitting the shelves in Britain tomorrow, starting with The Telegraph. Chinese debt trap threat to Britain. What's this story about? Let me find my copy of the Telegraph. Maybe Paul Cox, who's hanging on down the line, can enlighten us. The Mirror. Hope amid the chaos. This is the story of the hostages who are set to be released at 6 a.m. UK time. So if you're tuning into GB News Breakfast this morning, in just a few hours, I think it's Eamon and Ellie, they should have live pictures of the Israeli hostages being released. The New York Times. Israel and Hamas were not ready for a comprehensive peace deal. That's according to the Qatari Prime Minister, who said mediators in the Gaza war decided to delay talks on more difficult issues so the hostage-prisoner swap could be concluded quickly. And the Washington Post says that a conservative influencer was arrested in Portland. The president was watching. This is the story of Nick Sauter, who's a massive online influencer, social media star. Anyway, he was arrested during ICE raids in Portland, and the Trump administration paid close attention, and they've decided to clamp down on the left. Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Paul Cox is here, GB News superstar. Paul, what story would you like to look at in the papers tomorrow?
We should go to the Daily Express, actually, Ben. There's some good news. I always like these stories. My dear old nan passed away several years ago with dementia, and it's a terrible disease to watch anybody go through, loved one or otherwise. But the Daily Express says ultra-fast scan can boost dementia diagnosis rates. Now, dementia is not just something that affects the mind, Ben. I don't know if you've been unfortunate enough to have this in your family or with any friends or anything like that, and I don't know if our panellists have either, but it affects the whole body, and it affects all family members and all friends and takes takes a great deal of care. So I'm very pleased to see this, and I hope that one day we can get to the point where we identify very quickly when someone has onset dementia and deal with that appropriately. But what I would like to come to, Ben, I know you've covered it all night, but this is a momentous day, and I was really hoping that whilst you were on air in particular, that we would perhaps see the release of some of the hostages, and we still might yet. But I want to come back to the Times, because it says hopes and prayers as hostages set for release. And, you know, I want to remind all of us watching, and just us in the studios here in Washington and here in London, that this is a truly momentous occasion. I don't think any of us truly believed, even a couple of weeks ago, that Donald Trump would be able to pull this off. And all of a sudden, we're not just talking about Donald Trump having pulled it off. We are actually genuinely talking about peace in the Middle East, at least phase one of peace in the Middle East. And you know, I think it's time to stop and pause and think about this, because we still have the protests going on in London. I'm not sure what they're protesting for now. I assume they're protesting because it's the wrong type of peace and the wrong type of ceasefire. But what we will have within the next 12 hours are families reunited with live and unfortunately passed away loved ones that were taken hostage. And on both sides, and there's a lot going on both sides, but let's focus on the Israelis for now, because they've been through a huge amount. And all we've seen from other broadcasters, not GB News, from other broadcasters, is a bleating day after day after day after day about what's going on in Gaza. And I'm not undermining that in any way. But on the 7th of October, a huge atrocity took place which led to this war. And since then, we've all prayed for peace. And do you know what, Ben? We are inches away from it now.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating couple of hours. I think I may even stay up for GB News Breakfast with Eamon and Ellie. I'll have to get myself a few more coffees. But you're right, we hear a lot about... I mean, let's talk about the victims. Let's talk about the civilians in Gaza, the children who have been collateral damage, the thousands of children who have died, the civilians. I mean, it's god-awful. I'm so glad that hopefully now is coming to an end. But as you said, most other mainstream broadcasters rarely mention the hostages. And whenever I've been out on protests, pro-Palestine protests, the one thing I say to people is, well, all these accusations of genocide, the war, the carnage, the violence, the death, it could all stop if they released the hostages. And it was that one simple premise which seemed to just spark people into a rage. But it's been true. Just release the hostages and all this could stop. And as you said, they're long forgotten about, Paul, in all this kind of thing. And yeah, it's going to be a fascinating couple of hours.
Yeah, like you, Ben, and like many others, I don't want to dismiss the atrocities that have taken place in Gaza, particularly when it comes to children. You and I are both fathers. We can't imagine such things happening to our children, and my prayers are with them. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right to talk about the hostages in Israel. And I would say some of the voices, some of the most prominent voices, particularly within the UK media, I can't speak for the US media, but particularly within the UK media, have focused very heavily on what's gone on in Gaza, to almost dismiss what happened on October the 7th. And I think that's an atrocity in itself, because that's what ignited this particular war. And what we are seeing now, and I think what we're going to see play out over the next few hours, maybe even few days, God willing that this is successful and the hostages are released, are people talking about whataboutery, talking about how this isn't the right type of peace, how this isn't the right type of ceasefire. I don't care for that any longer. Donald Trump, God willing, like I say, seems to have negotiated a peace in the Middle East. And this will, I pray, lead to a long-lasting peace, Ben.
Yeah, well said, Paul. Sarah Firth is here, Victoria Churchill's here. Do you guys want to have a quick word with Paul about anything? Paul, just on dementia, I've had nobody in my immediate family. This is the front page of the Daily Express, just changing gear a second. My wife's grandfather died of dementia, and I remember when I first met him 16, 17 years ago. I went up to Scotland, to Dundee, where her granny lives, and he said, "Oh, nice to meet you." He went, "What does your dad do?" And I said, "Oh, I don't see my dad." And then a second later he said, "What does your dad do?" And I said, "Oh, I don't see my dad." And then Irene, his lovely wife, said, "Oh, for goodness sake, chick, shut up." But it's a disease that has always... I fear for dementia, getting dementia, because you lose your very essence, you lose your soul you lose your being. And I guess from the outside, maybe people can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're just a shadow of your former self if you're lucky. So it's great news to see that. So this Express story says that ultra-fast scans can boost diagnosis rates. How do you think this would help people then? If you get faster scans, I guess you can treat it quicker?
Yeah, well, there are lots of ways that you can treat dementia. And, you know, many people... I remember my dear old Anne, you lovely anecdote there about your wife's grandfather. My little Nan, as I call her, she was just because she was so little, and she was a huge influence on my life. She's my mum's mother, so my maternal grandmother. And a lot of the personality you see in front of you, Ben, that you've got to know the last few years, comes from that dear old lady. And I watched her go from this sort of sprightly, bright, 80-year-old woman into this shell of herself who was scared of the world around her, scared of me, scared of her daughter, scared of her son, and it's debilitating, and it's very sad to watch. But I think if we can get hold of this a lot quicker, and we can get the diagnosis rates a lot quicker, like I say, then we can be treating it a lot sooner, and we can take away some of those very depressing symptoms and delay them for some time, I'm sure.
Yeah, indeed. Sarah, anything to say? We chat to Paul, you okay?
No, I mean, I think we've touched on loads of it. I was very interested, Paul, by the Chinese debt trap story, because obviously there's a load of controversy around this dropped court case against the two men accused of spying. But this is raising in the Daily Telegraph some questions about, you know, our business ties in the UK. We know Rachel Reeves in particular has been really sort of forward in trying to bolster the trade between those two countries. And actually, the warnings are that could undermine security for Britain at a time when the Conservatives certainly are saying Labour is not being tough enough with China. They're not tackling this threat. There are huge questions and pressure on the UK government now to answer for what happened in this dropped court case. I'm just interested that, the Daily Telegraph picking up on that debt trap. The government are going to be desperate for this story to go away. Do you see this sort of spiralling? Do you think they're going to be able to bury this, or are we going to see more headlines like this, do you think?
No, I think we're going to see more headlines just like this. I don't think it's going to go away. I think the Labour Party have treated this far too delicately. Dare I say, Donald Trump is the sort of leader that you might like in times like this, particularly in the UK, because, look, here's the point. No political party within the UK, no political party that has been before or might come in the future is going to have an easy ride dealing with China. It does underpin our future, it underpins our economy, and we have to tread carefully because of that. However, it doesn't mean you can't be robust, and you have to be specifically have to be robust in terms of your homeland security. And we already know that they're spying on us. It's obvious that they're spying on us, and I think Rachel Reeves is in a difficult position, but they have to play a much harder line. We have to see them play at least performatively, a lot harder with China. I'm not suggesting the Conservative Party did any better. There's a lot of question marks over the way that David Cameron, for instance, during his time treated China. But look, we do have to be a lot harder with China because it is our homeland security, and we don't have to pin absolutely everything on them. This could be the downfall of Labour, I fear. I don't fear that at all, to be honest.
I hope they're not spying on your phone, Paul Cox. They'd have a field day. Victoria?
I just want to say, I think it's, at least from an American perspective, it's a little bit surprising that the UK does seem to be a little bit softer on China now, because China is actually one of the issues that I think in the US Congress, which I primarily cover for the Daily Mail, that both Democrats and Republicans agree on, that it's concerns with farming, it's concerns with national security, it's concerns with, spying on university campuses. And so, this is actually one of the bipartisan areas of collaboration in our own government, of making sure that the U.S. actually tries to decouple a little bit from China. We actually do, unfortunately, owe a lot of our national debt to China, and so that process is going to be long and arduous, but it does seem at least that there is bipartisan effort to try and do that. And so I'm surprised that, again, going back to kind of the relationship between the U.S. and the U.K., I could see that potentially being even a little bit better than it already is if maybe the UK, regardless of party, decided to be a little bit harsher on China.
Yeah, look, and that's great to see, and that is one thing that does cross the aisle in the US particularly well. I wouldn't say that it doesn't in the UK. I would imagine most centrist Labour and centrist Conservative Party members would be anti-China in terms of its political stance. Unfortunately, our political parties are really broad churches, and particularly in the Labour Party side, they were affiliated with the Communist Party to some degree. They split in about 1924, the Labour Party, having been formed in 1900. And they split in 1924 when all this stuff kind of blew up. And I mean, I joked earlier with Ben about there being links between the Labour Party now and the Chinese Communist Party. According to the Labour website, there was absolutely no links whatsoever, so we'll take that on face value. But really what is happening here is there is a philosophy, an ideology that sits within the sort of momentum Corbyn-esque type aspects of the Labour Party that leans towards communism. It hates capitalism. And there's one thing the US does like and does tend to appreciate, and that is capitalism, because it made the US great. It's also made the UK great, and I wish we wouldn't hate it so much.
Yep, indeed. Paul, thank you very much, mate. As ever, really appreciate your company. And yeah, get yourself to bed and set the alarm for 6 a.m. With breakfast with Aben and Ellie. Some of you asking what I was giggling at there. It was an email from somebody talking about Keir Starmer, which made me laugh. I was trying to hold it in. I can't possibly repeat what the email said, but you can, yeah, imagine. Right, let's move on. Former Vice President Kamala Harris pushed back at protesters during her Chicago book tour stop on Saturday. Demonstrators criticised her over US support for Israel amid the Gaza conflict.
Because you are now... I hate that I have the same person that was telling people not to vote.
And here's what she had to say in response.
You know what? I am not President of the United States. You want to go to the White House and talk to him?
Yeah, don't we know it? You're not President of the United States. Thank goodness for that. Well, in other news, Joe Biden's going to start his prostate cancer treatment. Here is what Kamala Harris had to say on that.
I want to get to some news that just came out today with President Biden. His spokesperson said that he is going to now start doing radiation for his prostate cancer. Have you talked to him about it?
I called him earlier.
Mm-hmm. How's he doing?
I have not talked to him. I just left him a message after I heard the news. I was otherwise on the event, at the event.
Oh, well, she said I'll talk to him earlier and then admitted that she hadn't talked to him. So, yeah, goodness knows. Best wishes to Joe Biden as he recovers from his prostate treatment. Elsewhere, back in the UK, newly leaked emails suggest Prince Andrew may have lied about cutting ties with Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, this bombshell story today in the Mail on Sunday says it's definitive proof, these emails, that he lied in that Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis. Just as a reminder, he emailed Epstein saying, "We are in this together," just months after claiming he'd publicly severed all contact with the paedophile billionaire. And the email sent in February 2011, the day after that now infamous photo of Andrew with the late Virginia Giuffre and Ghislaine Maxwell resurfaced, contradicted that interview with the BBC. Elizabeth, you've said on your site, Ben, look it up, you can temporarily have a sweating block after trauma, as in the Falklands, for example, just saying. But Sarah Firth, I mean, what trauma has Andrew gone through for there to be a sweating? I mean, it's a minor point, the sweating, isn't it? But it just proves, maybe, this, according to the story, that he's a liar. He's a habitual liar.
Yes, it is a bombshell allegation. Just a reminder for viewers, so he claimed in that BBC interview that he broke off contact with Jeffrey Epstein in 2010 after that infamous photo that you saw of the two of them. He was pushed very hard on that in that interview. But it's now being claimed, and the Mail have those emails, that he sent Jeffrey Epstein in an email a message saying, "We're in this together," after a picture of him with Virginia Giuffre emerged, and that was 28th of Feb 2011.
Should you have his title stripped from him?
I don't think they're going to go that far. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he's already been sort of, you know, even when the Queen was still alive, he got taken off his royal duties, didn't he? He's been sort of put into the shadows. But I mean, I think this is a different level to the scandal. If he's actually proven to have been lying, not just to the BBC interviewer, but to the public.
Yeah. The HRH titles, the late Queen, his mother, said that you can't use the HRH title anymore. Victoria, I'm not sure if you know too much about the royals, but anyway, the only way he can now lose his HRH title, His Royal Highness, is through legislation in Parliament. Should Parliament proceed with a piece of legislation that strips Andy of his HRH?
I mean, if they think that that's the you know, if there's kind of a pre-established standard, I would say, and if he crosses that, I would say definitely. You know, I find the kind of the balance between the elected government versus, you know, obviously the royals, I find that balance quite fascinating to just, you know, study as an American. But, you know, I think this just reminds me of just a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Mandelson, you know, kind of a similar story. I think he tried to walk back the extent of his relationship and the longevity of his relationship with Epstein. And, you know, obviously Mandelson was serving in an appointed position, but he was stripped of that position, of course, here in the U.S., and he was sent back by Stallmer. You know, that I will give Stallmer kudos to that, that he did not want to deal with that embarrassment from a member of his government. But yeah, you know, I think if we're kind of drawing parallel lines, which again, I'm not sure to what extent we can do with somebody that is, you know, born into that title, but I think there's enough parallels to exist to try and kind of push him back even further out of the public eye.
Yeah.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in a conversation between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer, if they're just passing words at this summit. There's so much to talk about, isn't there?
I know. I paid good money for that. Paul Farrow on your say said, well, Andrew did serve in the Falklands as a fighter pilot, in reference to the sweating. I keep going back to the sweating for some reason. But okay, fine. Thank you for your service, Andrew. But did he experience trauma as a fighter pilot in the Falklands? I don't know. Arthur Dent has said, I don't know if I should read this. No, I won't read it. If you want to have a look, gbnews.com/your say. You can take a look at Arthur Dent's comment. I'm not saying it on air. I've got a mortgage to pay. Right, one more very quick story. The Sun, this is breaking news tonight. The Sun newspaper has won a massive legal battle to reveal that a child rapist was an asylum seeker. I'll just repeat that. The Sun's won a legal battle to reveal that a child rapist in Britain was an asylum seeker. His name was Amin Abedi Mofrad. He's 35. He was convicted of attacking a 15-year-old girl after throwing his coat over her head. His legal team and prosecutors wanted to keep his asylum status secret during the trial, blocking the Sun from reporting on it. They claimed it could sway the jury's verdict if they read about it and even cause protests outside the court. But the Sun's lawyers, and I know the Sun's lawyers very well because I've worked with them many times when I was there for 7 years, they're a good bunch, they argued a ban could be seen as an example of two-tier justice and there was no evidence the jury would be distracted in any way by the defendant's immigration status. Very quick word, 10 seconds. Good that we should know that asylum seekers are rapists. Why on earth were the one that's covered up?
Absolutely, it should be out there. I mean, you know, obviously there's much higher standards for libel and things like that in the US than there are in the UK, but, you know, I think this underscores the importance of the industry that we're all in as journalists, is trying to uncover things like this.
Yeah, top-class journalism from the Sun. No surprise that you came from there. Absolutely. GB, lucky to have you now.
Oh, Sarah, what a way to finish the night. Thank you so much. I'll buy you a drink afterwards. I'll buy you drinks as well, Victoria. Thank you for your company tonight. Appreciate it. And Sarah as well. And, of course, thank you, lovely viewers at home, for your company all weekend. Bev's back tomorrow. She landed back from Blighty today in DC, so you lucky so-and-sos, you've got her all next week as well. And, yeah, I am popping home next week for a few days to see the little ones. My boy Jude is going to be 6 years old, so I'll be back though next Sunday. Thank you. gbnews.com/your say. Keep those comments coming in. The hostages are being released at 6 a.m. Tune in to breakfast. Eamon and Ellie, I'll see you next week. Sweet dreams. Good night.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's a foggy start out there for some of us, but the sunshine will slowly break through as we go through the course of the day. Apart from in northern Scotland, where it will stay pretty damp, so some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle perhaps here for much of the day, particularly for the Northern Isles. Quite cloudy for Northern Ireland as well, but largely dry. The best of the sunshine this afternoon across central and southern parts of Scotland, northern England, Wales, and more southern parts of the UK having a much sunnier picture this afternoon compared to yesterday 22. So after the early fog has cleared this morning, temperatures will lift in that sunshine up to 16, perhaps as high as 18 degrees Celsius by this afternoon. So feeling fairly pleasant with the light winds. It won't be quite as warm though across northern parts of Scotland, where after a fairly cloudy and murky day with some bits and pieces of drizzle, it will be once again a cloudy evening. So here generally staying quite cloudy right the way through the course of the night. Some late sunshine for western parts of Scotland. Northern Ireland probably brightening up a little bit through the afternoon, but fairly cloudy skies here also into the evening. Clear skies though for Wales and western parts of England, at least as we go through Sunday evening. But gradually, as we go through the course of the coming night, we are going to see an area of cloud once again just returning from the North Sea, spreading its way westwards into western parts of England and Wales by the time we get to the early hours of Monday morning. So that cloud acting like a blanket, keeping temperatures from falling too low tonight. So lows of 8 to 11 degrees Celsius in the main towns and cities. But some patchy fog and some rural frost across parts of Scotland to begin the day on Monday morning. So here, away from the fog, probably the brightest conditions on Monday with some sunny spells and fairly nice and sunny conditions across parts of the far north of England too on Monday. Brightening up for Northern Ireland as well by the afternoon, but most of England and Wales having a slightly cooler and certainly a much gloomier picture on Monday compared to on Sunday. Temperatures down by a degree or so, but in the best of the sunshine, highs of 15 to 17 degrees Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends.
Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Welcome to GB News, 6 o'clock, time to get you up to date with the latest news. I'm Aaron Armstrong. Israel expects all 20 living hostages held by Hamas to be released together tomorrow morning. A spokesperson for the government says they will be delivered to the Red Cross before being transferred to the Israeli military. They will then take them to southern Israel, where the hostages will be reunited with their families. However, Hamas is insisting 7 Palestinian leaders should be freed in the hostage prisoner swap, although Benjamin Netanyahu's office has confirmed it won't release Marwan Barghouti, a prominent Palestinian prisoner who is serving multiple life sentences. Now, dozens of aid trucks have been seen entering Gaza in an effort to alleviate the humanitarian crisis, although trucks are queuing up at a number of border crossings